Hello! It's a completely weird remote news week. I don't know what categories we're doing. I also didn't look at the date, but I'm gonna look it up now.
There's a one tab in the chat. It's 428.
428. Yeah, the one tab just has the stories. It doesn't tell us what sections we're doing today.
Oh, well, no,
Social media is one, but I don't know what the other one is.
Government. We always start with government.
Government.
Well, it's like 20 stories, give or take. So
Alright.
there's not really a lot of news this week. It's probably going to go kind of fast, but maybe not. I don't know. But we're all quarantining because, isn't that the end thing to do? You're watching all of your people that are... It's funny watching people like Conan try to stream from their house, and it's worse than this.
And it makes you feel a little bit better about the quality of this program. It's like, these guys can't do it.
I can't really say that and also my audio is terrible and we know, but I don't have a USB hub, so you're going to have to deal with it. And I can't say that I'm on remote because I'm quarantining, because clearly I haven't been doing that up until this point. But I poisoned myself with undercooked chicken on Thursday.
Oh.
I still don't feel good.
I just poisoned myself with some Taco Bell. Made a run for the border, product placement Taco Bell.
That's the only place I've been since all this started, because they have a drive-thru not far from my home.
Well, I might have forgotten to start or sort the stories, so I'm going to blame the Taco Bell and or the under-eating and or I don't know.
It's that kind of week.
Yeah.
It is that kind of...
Our first story is about Israel. Israel has stopped using phone tracking to enforce COVID-19 quarantines. The really sketchy thing in this article is that they were like, we've already arrested some people without this application because the police are monitoring people that leave their homes when they're not supposed to. And it's like, okay, fair enough.
Visits. You got to wonder, the cop to citizen ratio has to be pretty huge to be able to just go and visit people every day if they're sick.
Yeah. Well, it's like weren't they doing that in New York or somewhere? It's like, oh, you're patient zero. You got to stay in your apartment.
They should kill two birds with one stone here, and the cop should bring you a meal.
Oh, yeah. That'd be nice. That won't happen.
No.
That would be really nice if you were, they were checking on the elderly. That would be a great use of their time. They'd probably spread the infection. That'd probably be bad.
Have a robot do it.
Yeah.
I've read some really horrific headlines about things that the virus is doing now, and I'm just like, that's great. That's a good thing to know.
They'd deploy a robot, one of the Amazon delivery robots, and then it accidentally infect an entire home of old people, and they would just be like, "Oh, we don't have any idea what happened. That would be terrible." That was an attempt at segueing into another time Amazon lied to Congress. Amazon's top watchdog in Congress says the witness that it had may have lied. This is talking about how... Have you noticed how Amazon, when there's a popular product on Amazon, say fidget spinners, all of a sudden there's the Amazon Basics fidget spinner? That's not a coincidence.
Well, of course they want to manufacture their own. They want that full profit.
I got to wonder, because they've known this for quite a while, and it's just coming up now after the Jedi thing. Is this sort of how dare you stand up to us? You know who we are?
Probably. But they actually, I couldn't get past the whole thing in the testimony where they were telling Congress, no, it is purely coincidental that Amazon starts making Amazon brand popular product when we notice that Amazon, the platform, is selling a lot of product X. Amazon, the platform, and Amazon, the product sourcing and delivery service, those are completely different things. Not so much.
They're not, though.
And it really was just one sentence that he said that got him. If he would have just left it a little bit more vague, they would have still gotten away with it, and they would have been okay.
Yeah.
He went too far.
It was super misleading as opposed to just blatantly misleading.
What do you, if all of the third-party sellers, or a critical mass of them, could walk away from Amazon, do you think it would destroy them?
I think that if there were something else that those sellers could use to get the business that they do, they would abandon Amazon in a heartbeat. And I don't think it would destroy Amazon, but it would eat into their margins quite a bit.
Again, it's never going to happen, because there's always going to be somebody there's always going to be a scab. The word escaped me for a moment.
I miss old Etsy, for handmade stuff and things like that. Because it would be a nice alternative to Amazon, but at this point it's just the same full of crappy, plastic Chinese junk, and it's like, well, this used to be a good website. If I want cheap Chinese junk, I'll just go to Amazon.
And blatant IP theft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is our
Level 1 knockoff hoodie. Product placement, Krista.
And crochet.
The Level 1 crochet.
I am actually wearing a Level 1 hoodie today, but it's a little bit big, so I usually don't wear it outside of the house because it doesn't fit me quite right, but it's fine.
But inside the house makes perfect sense because you should be a comfortable temperature.
Right.
You know what else
doesn't? It's chilly today. It's raining.
You know what else doesn't fit quite right? RIPE and Chinese proposals to the changes on the internet. So ZDNet headline is RIPE opposes China's internet protocols upgrade plan. RIPE speaks out against China and Huawei's new IP, quote unquote, internet upgrade plan and says the internet standards should be left to the Internet Engineering Task Force, not the United Nations. So if you look into the proposal from China, it's going to make it super easy to censor things on the internet and super easy to do a lot of the things that we've been seeing China do with the Great Firewall, which is probably not a good thing for the internet to have implemented.
I like how, we've got the CCPA and, DMCA and all these terrible things, and we sort of like, it's a big thing when they happen, we fight against them. And then China comes out with one, and it's just so much further. They're like, no, we're not going to change the rules. We're going to reinvent the medium to control it. You guys just don't think, enough outside the box.
This is the new CCP, the Censorship Control Protocol. Like, why does that need to be in the network stack? Shh.
It's a sad state of affairs.
I can't think that this will ever happen here, but what if post-virus, China becomes more economically powerful because they're going to come out first and they can start buying things up if our economy crashes? That could be a terrifying reality.
See, I don't know that they will come out first because a lot of places are starting to move manufacturing away. Like, the world is pissed at them right now.
Well, not
It's
just
going to be like a weird vacuum.
But
okay, so you want to build a factory in the U.S.?
No one wants that. It'll probably be in like other Asian countries.
They'll buy Canada.
I mean, from what I've heard from Canadians, that's already kind of happening in some of the cities.
probably Mexico would get pennies on the dollar, nice strategic location, could take over the southern hemisphere if necessary. Yeah, I don't know. The thing is, though, a lot of the stuff that China wants control over for controlling the citizenry and controlling the message, our IP lobby wants control of. So when you say things like the DMCA, the copyright lobby would love nothing more than to be able to just shut off arbitrary websites from their giant control center. I mean, they almost have that ability now with Google searches, and because we're so reliant on just a handful of services, and they definitely got the copyright lobby definitely has their claws in all of those online services. This is just taking it like one step down in the network stack.
That's a terrifying possibility because the copyright people in China are bitter enemies. But could they set aside their differences and respect copyright in return for control of the internet?
I think they would. They would take that trade.
That's a great. So someday somebody's going to be writing a book about the great social experiment where it's like, oh, and then the copyright lobby got together with the communists and.
Time to build that bunker.
Speaking of things getting together to make things happen, I don't know. The FCC has widened the Wi-Fi Airwaves access in a win for Facebook and Google. So the FCC is opening up the 6 gigahertz spectrum for use by Wi-Fi devices. The idea here is to increase density, which will allow more devices and better public access and better coverage in other places. So Google and Facebook could offer services in like subway tunnels and crap like that.
The only cost here is pipeline explosions. So everybody wins.
Yeah, it's probably fine. Oh no, this is my last free article from Bloomberg. France says that Apple's Bluetooth policy is blocking the virus tracker. I was chuckling the whole time I was reading this article because it's like, wait a minute, with the GDPR and the EU rules, don't you normally want this level? It's like, the privacy protection in Apple devices won't let us do a, contact tracker.
See, I think what happened here, as always happens when you let the government do something, is they built it and didn't consider this while they were testing their, private devices. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh, this doesn't work. It's Apple's fault.
We've already spent millions of dollars on research and development. Let's just change their side, not ours.
Turns out there's a lot of stuff built into Apple to change like your Bluetooth MAC address, and also the applications are not permitted to run in the background continuously. Although Apple and Google announced they're going to do the same thing, they're just doing it together. Seems like the government could just say, hey, give us access to what you're doing, and this becomes a non-issue.
Oh no, the difference there is the Apple and Google one don't report those Bluetooth logs back. So you can record Bluetooth logs, but you can't phone home when the device is inactive.
Nice. That seems like that's entirely consistent with European law.
Yeah, and they don't need that because the way Apple and Google designed it, it's like, hey, we'll just tell you if anything happens. But that's not what they want. They want the tracking portion of it.
Motives. So many dark motives. Speaking of dark motives, Reuters. Facebook agreed to censor posts after Vietnam slowed traffic. So this is sort of an interesting one. Vietnam requested Facebook take some posts down that it didn't agree with politically, and Facebook declined, and then Vietnam slowed network access to Facebook IP addresses, and then Facebook complied.
It's an
interesting way to combat them. I mean, I kind of respect it because like they don't complain. They don't make noise. They don't threaten. It's just like, yeah, turn them off. We control the ISPs. Just shut them down.
You know what would make this a lot easier? It's that new Chinese new IP control protocol thing they mentioned. It'd be way easier.
Yeah, and they could do it everywhere, not just in these countries with top-down control.
I was wondering why Vietnam's numbers were so good for infections. And now I'm like, if they have this kind of control over their people, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. They stopped. Somebody, like China only had 4,600 deaths. Like it's just stopped. Like the number just stopped. So a lot of people are like,
yeah, I don't know if I believe China's numbers. I'm not entirely sure if I believe anyone's numbers at this point.
I
don't have a segue. Huh?
You can't believe anything about it.
No.
No.
Don't believe us, chat.
The segue into the next story is not existing. I have no segue. Other than this happened in France. Last week it was France. This week it's Australia. Australia is going to force technology giants like Facebook and Google to pay for news content. So if you have a service like Google News that displays aggregate headlines, that's something you have to pay for now. I was thinking about like our stuff. It's like, does this mean eventually someday, because we're reporting on news stories and we link to them, is like, would that be included in this kind of the way that it's written?
But so one thing about that makes me wonder is with the paywall situation, and I didn't bother at all this week, but sometimes I'll try to find a paywall alternative. And the way that, for example, Financial Times or Business Insider gets around the whole, like, this is Wall Street Journal story, is they report on Wall Street Journal reporting. And that is okay because that's news. They're reporting on an event because Wall Street Journal is newsworthy. So do they have to pay eventually? Isn't that the same thing?
One would think. Is it because one is done by a human and the other one is done algorithmically?
Yeah. Plus, this article makes it seem like all of Facebook and Google's money come from news articles. But I don't think that's a huge part of their business.
Yeah. It's definitely not. It's all the data mining and ads. So many ads.
Although in France, Google was cool with it, so I guess they consider they can still make money.
Do you think eventually they'll just stop doing the program entirely, though, if every country starts demanding payment for it?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, or, do your own, like, at what point does it become more economical for Google to become the news source?
Just pay. YouTube, it's like, we're going to pay, instead of content creators, we have news creators. And you have independent journalists out there doing like YouTube type stuff, and then that's how they get paid.
That's kind of what BuzzFeed did, because BuzzFeed used to just be like, a meme site, where people just make jokes about, current events, but now they have BuzzFeed News, where it's like actual reporting.
Or, like just hire do the freelance model, because that's what most journalists do anyway. And Google's like, yeah, I'll give you $1 more, and we'll create an API to set all that up so we can figure out what we need to pay you to steal these news stories.
I mean, originate these news stories.
It is kind of weird to think that, like, I mean, I guess it kind of happens anyway if you're just Googling stories, but like, it's kind of weird to think that all of your news would come from one source. But maybe
there's
that's
a lot of
what we're headed
Bloomberg
toward.
this week. I noticed a lot of Bloomberg this week. And that's not, I'm not like cruising Bloomberg. It's just the sites that I'm getting things from, everybody uses Bloomberg, which is annoying because it's paywall.
It is paywall.
It might be because Bloomberg is the only people that haven't shut down, or they were better equipped to deal with the shutdown. I don't know. Well, we got one more story from Ars Technica. That's ICANN has delayed the .org sale again after a scathing letter from the California Attorney General. The controversial deal would saddle the .org registry with $300 million in debt. Yeah, that seems a little insane. It seems like they're being Toys R Us or Sears'd. What are they going to do? Fail? Nah, somebody else will work that out. It's a game of monetary hot potato.
But here's the thing, they're a nonprofit. I don't understand why this needs to happen at all. This makes no sense.
It makes sense because they're creating $300 million out of thin air.
Yeah, but who's going to get it? It's a nonprofit.
The $300 million is probably going to go to private investors or consulting fees.
This is ridiculous. And, I'm all for the private sector, but this is manipulating something that the private sector didn't create. Can you guys hear this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, your cats? No. Pick one up and show them. Yeah, show them.
Level 1 cat break.
1 second.
Rudog was on the news the other week, so now the cats get to be on. This is very exciting. Zuriel's gonna be pumped. Oh, look how big he is. What good kitty cat. Look, he's just chilling. He's like a baby. Look at him. He's just like, all right.
This is the well-behaved one, right?
He can't hear us. He's got his headphones off.
Oh, right.
Nope. I was going to pet him. He knows he's not allowed on the table.
He's confused.
It's like, why did you put me here?
Which one was that?
That's Toast.
Oh, okay. I love that he just picked him up like a baby and he just was like, okay.
Yeah, he's fine with it. Crouton, not so much. He'll let me hold him for a little while. Maybe we'll try him in the next episode.
If I was ordering the stories, our next story would have been great right after the Israel story. Because the Israel story, it's like we're looking at the contact tracing app, and it's like, no, this is too invasive of individuals' privacy. And the perfect segue would have been, well, here in America, we respect people's privacy, and we wouldn't let it get that far before we ever do anything. Oh, wait. Trump admin gives coronavirus tracking contract to Peter Thiel's Palantir, which is not ironically named.
We don't know who else may be watching.
That guy has been a big Trump supporter, so I'm sure that Trump is probably just blind to the dangers of what he's doing rather than he doesn't care. I'm sure it's ignorance and not malice here, but that's also a problem because he should be aware of these kinds of things. And he has to know that, oh my God, these cats.
See, we can't hear him.
Yeah, it's literally, well, we could earlier, but now it seems quieter.
Oh
yeah.
They're eating. They love to eat plastic for whatever reason. They're eating the water bag for the water bottles.
We can't hear it.
Now it's quiet. I guess they were going at it. I don't know.
It is close.
But Palantir, yeah, like they're just hoovering up all of this data. And the crazy thing is, this data doesn't go away after the pandemic ends.
Yeah, that's it's a business story, so I won't spoil it. But the question of what happens to the data has been raised in some cases. But even if Amazon or Facebook or Palantir were to promise it, they're not going to do it. How many times in the past have they promised data would go away and it never does?
I think that there's been at least 3 or 4 times in the history of the Level 1 news where they had a story and it was like, no, we're going to destroy the data. And then in that in that episode we said, no, it's going to show up on Amazon S3 in 6 months. And then sure enough, 6 months later, it's like, oh, guess who had a leaky bucket?
And can you imagine how valuable it would be just for marketing data? If someone had the virus, how much more likely are they to be terrified of anything medical related? You'd be able to sell them so much stuff.
What was the thing that, when this first started, I looked up, some nurse on the internet was saying, like, oh, you need to get, it's an oximeter. And you couldn't find any on Amazon. So I'm sure it'll be like that. You know, oh, you should buy this particular thermometer, and then no one can buy it.
Makes sense.
Uh,
Other things that make sense, we talk, and this is in the South Morning China Post, which is amazing. The headline is, China orders TikTok owners ByteDance to remove work from home app. So the people that make TikTok made basically a clone of Slack that had some more functionality than what Slack has. But one of the things that software did was it could fetch the headlines from like Twitter and CNN and, you know, Western media news sites, and then bring it in and display it in your chat channel. The problem is that people were talking about headlines from other countries, and that's not allowed in China.
There has to be that one developer who was like, yeah, this is going to be an amazing feature. I'm going to add this. And they're going to know who that was because of version control. And he's going to go away.
That feature, the whole application had to go away, not just that feature, while it's investigated by the state. And
yeah, I'm sure they'll bring it back, though, and it'll be heavily,
yeah,
truncated.
they're going to bring back the guy, too, right? Like the developer. He'll definitely come.
Maybe not so much.
Maybe after the re-education camp.
He's going to go to one of those work camps for sure.
And then he'll be back and be like, no, I was well treated. They just had some questions. Twitch. Well, we talked about Zoom for what seems like 2 or 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Because that's how we're using Discord for this, so that's a lot of fun. But Facebook wants in on the action, as they always do. A little late to the party, but they're taking on Zoom with Messenger Rooms. Group videos no longer require a Facebook account. Yeah, you might be wondering, it's like, wait, didn't Facebook already have this feature? They literally had portals. We talked about how Facebook made a bunch of portals, a little video conferencing thing that was like your grandma could use, like they just touch a picture of you and then immediately they're calling you 85 times a day. And they sold out of those when this whole thing first started. Well, the problem is nobody wants to log into Facebook. Nobody wants to have a Facebook account. Nobody wants Mark Zuckerberg looking over your shoulder, breathing heavily.
He doesn't breathe.
It's got that raspy rattle, like the mechanical rattle. It's a little unsettling.
It's just, it's something to simulate breathing, because he doesn't need to.
And so Facebook has this new thing, Messenger Rooms, which you just need a link for. You don't have to log in. There's no BS. It's a little like Zoom in that regard, because it turns out people don't want to fool with that BS, and that's why I think those things were really popular. Microsoft, are you paying attention? You should be paying attention.
If this makes Facebook, if one positive thing comes out of the virus, it would be if Facebook turned off that stupid nag about logging in to making me, because sometimes some businesses only use Facebook, which I hate. Mm-hmm. And normally I'll ignore you if you do that, because I think it's so unprofessional. It's like the most pathetic thing in the world. But sometimes you don't have a choice, and that nag screen is among the worst in the universe.
There's another thing it's another story later in the thing about you can't access some content now.
I hope that just kills small businesses who try to do that, because it's ridiculous.
I think it's probably also true that Facebook knows who you are, and it's completely placebo. It's like, I already know who you are. I just want you to say who you are. And it's like, oh, that's kind of dark and scary, because, like, why are you making me log in? You already know who I am.
How do you make the pop-up sound less scary, though? You just put, like, a happy little person next to it. It's like, hey, we just want to make sure.
Speaking of stuff that Facebook's been up to, they've accused the NSO Group of using U.S. servers for spying. This is in a court filing this week. The NSO Group is the one that had the zero-day WhatsApp hack that may have been used on Jeff Bezos. We don't know. That's a different story. And I might be confusing my details there, but there's apparently some kind of a hack or a backdoor or something in WhatsApp. Facebook claims no knowledge, but they're trying to figure it out. NSO Group's involved. They're an intelligence service, basically. And there's a lot to unpack here, but in the court filing, they also had a list of IP addresses that the NSO group uses. So if you have logs of all of the IP addresses that have tried to do bad stuff to your computers, you should go check those IP addresses against your logs.
I think the most interesting thing about this story was the NSO group's defense isn't that, no, we don't hack people. It's that we only sell the software to hack people. They, in turn, hack people, and we don't help them do that. But it seems like under investigation, they totally do help people do that. So it's like almost you get a guy to come to your business and help you hack your nation state targets from NSO. And that's what they're trying to prove.
Yeah, it seems like that's, it seems like it's like you've got a tech support ticket. It's like, I'm just helping you use the software. Now tell me what it is you want to do. It's like, okay, you press enter. I've typed the command for you, but you press enter.
Yeah, so not surprising.
Now we talk about disinformation on Facebook a lot, and how people like YouTube and Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, we've heard, step up and say, we're going to combat disinformation on Facebook, blah blah blah. We can't have that. There's a new crackdown on YouTube, which means that we can't mention the thing, or we've had difficulty mentioning the thing. So I found this article kind of interesting for a variety of reasons. Facebook has formally gotten rid of pseudoscience ad targeting category. So if you're an advertiser on Facebook and you wanted to target somebody that was interested in pseudoscience, you totally could.
I imagine that probably works well for things like essential oils or alternative medicine, like
or the Tide Pod challenge.
Do you think they saw a huge uptick in Lysol buying ads?
Yes, they absolutely did. The data on that is already out. It's like, I think Ricky Gervais, was it? I think Ricky Gervais in like 2016 tweeted that like on bleach bottles it says "do not drink," which makes me realize that we can actually have the presidency that we have.
Well, I mean, coffee says contents are hot. Everything has to have the most basic instructions. The other one they got rid of here was conspiracy theories, which is interesting. I wonder, do you think the pseudoscience crowd were big buyers? Did they convert a lot of sales?
I think for the right product, yeah. I mean, if you have that as categories and you're like, you can buy the JFK UFO files right here and I can just target that group, my click-through rate is going to be through the roof.
I'm thinking just someone, I have this herbal supplement that, boosts your immune system and, prevents viruses from taking hold in your lungs. And that's all you have to do, and you promote it to the right buyer. They might see that and be like, oh, okay.
I mean, if I saw a Facebook ad that was like, what made Reagan change his mind after he became president about releasing the UFO files? Click here. I'd be like, I'm not even, like, I mean, that's probably junk, but I'm not even mad. That's actually impressive how specifically targeted that is.
I think they'll find a new way to name them something else that sounds like something else, but really it's still that same group.
Yeah, probably we'll report back in about 3 months. It's like, oh, this is the group that's called. Although there's also Oprah. Like, Oprah has promoted like Dr. Phil and remember Jenny McCarthy?
Dr. Oz.
And that's also kind of pseudoscience, pretty much pseudoscience. So
but it's
Oprah.
Socially acceptable.
Does that mean they're gonna? How does Goop classify itself?
Oh yeah, that's not even pseudoscience. That's just not even. There's no science there at all. It's just pseudo.
Did you know they released a Netflix documentary about all of the things they do at Goop?
Was it by them or by someone critical of them?
It was produced with Goop with Netflix. So like, I just watched a few clips of it on YouTube and it was insufferable. They're like, we just want to explore alternatives and what we're doing isn't harmful. And it was like, but it could be though, if the wrong person buys into this and then tries to treat themselves with your stuff.
Well, that's what happened to what's his name, Apple guy.
Steve Jobs. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Steve Jobs would probably be alive if he had a little bit more forceful doctor that was like, Steve, stop being a moron. Let's get your liver fixed.
I don't know enough about that story. Didn't whatever was wrong with him, it was fairly treatable if you caught it early?
Yes. And they did catch it early. He just didn't go with the recommended treatment.
so treatable
That's bizarre.
that someone convinced him that, you don't need to do this harmful radiation and chemotherapy. You just need to, eat raw and do all these hippie things.
Whoops.
Why not do both if you're really concerned about it? But whatever.
Do you know who I am?
Speaking of eating raw, Facebook invests $5.7 billion in India's Reliance Jio platforms. So
It's a good segue. It's just smooth. Like, I didn't even notice.
Oh.
It is amazing that all these Western companies just, fighting for India. Do we see in our lifetimes the pivot for the interest of all these huge multinational corporations from like USA #1 to India #1?
I think that a lot of these companies think that it's going to be like America, in the early 80s through the 90s.
Or post-war.
Yeah, or post-war. It's like there was just such an incredible explosion. The level of technology and the education level, the average education level went way, way up. That produced a whole new, consumer base. And it's like, look at the 1980s toys. Like the toys that were there in the 1980s, people were buying that like crazy. So if Facebook is a part of everyday life in a good way in India, that's going to be cemented for 50 years.
It's going to suck for us.
Yeah, probably a little bit.
We're going to miss our multinationals when they're gone. Maybe we can all become like rural, farmers and stuff, like a lot of India society is. Maybe we could get more basic and be happy like that.
Well, I don't see that happening, not unless there's a massive population die-off.
What could cause that?
Palantir.
MIT Technology Review has a heat map from Facebook. Facebook has released a map of the coronavirus symptoms. Oh, I said it. No.
It's
has
fine.
A map of.
I don't think we'll be demonetized anymore. We're not supposed to be. That doesn't mean it won't happen.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Symptoms crowdsourced from its users. So this is just if you're using Facebook and you got take a Facebook survey, just fill it out, and this is the heat map. And I don't think it's really telling us anything we didn't already know.
Well, again, these are the people who take an online survey about their health from Facebook and don't think twice about the privacy implications of that. So is it really a good sample?
No. Because those people are using Facebook in the first place.
Also, and this is something that they brought up in that the tracking story. I don't know if it was this one or the Apple Google one, but they don't have a good way of actually determining false positives. So you could just have trolls or hypochondriacs who are going to skew that number incredibly.
What was that? Was that a cat?
The cats are really having a good time right now.
Oh, they're wrestling.
You know who's not having a good time right now? It's Ripple. Ripple sued YouTube over cryptocurrency scams. I thought this was kind of funny because, if you use YouTube, you know about cryptocurrency scams. Some YouTubers have had their channels hacked and taken over by cryptocurrency scams. Look.
Aww, they're so cute.
Are claws out, or are they just play fighting?
They're a little aggressive sometimes.
Look at those good boys. You know who would love that?
But yeah, so it turns out that Ripple has experienced some especially egregious behavior by YouTube, which is apparently somebody managed to get a channel verified that was like their CEO's channel, but it was just scammers. And the scammers were like, hey, send us some Ripple and we'll send you, 10 times as much Ripple back, and just crazy stuff like that. Or it was like that we'd send you up to $1 million in Ripple, and it was a 5 million Ripple giveaway, and I don't know, it just seems like a mess. And
it all seemed kind of benign to me until I got to that part. Like, how did that guy get confirmed?
Yeah.
That seems incredible. But again, it's this scam where I need you to send me money so I can send you more money. And it's just, I don't understand how people fall for that.
Well, let me explain it. It's internet. It's magic internet money. That's how it works.
Huh?
Facebook will ban protests that defy government guidance on distancing. Anti-lockdown protests are taking place across America, which I think is overstated, at least around here. Like the anti-lockdown protests are like the same 5 people over and over again.
It really is.
But it gets clicks.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Coverage is like extreme compared to the number of people doing it. Also, we cannot, and again, these are, not the kind of people who have a lot of influence, obviously, but our YouTube comments. There are a lot of anti-lockdown comments in our YouTube comments.
I don't understand, like, how did the
right?
Venn diagram of people interested in our news programming and those kind of people, like, where does that overlap? But apparently there's a small, if maybe not significant one. It's so weird.
I would prefer to do what we can to keep the elderly people alive, but that's just me.
Yeah, for real.
I like to think that we have a skeptical take on most of the news. But, you have to temper that as well. You can't just go full, like everything's a lie. You have to try and figure out what's real and what isn't. It does seem like people are dying.
Well, yeah, and like, who does it benefit to have us all locked down and have the economy just like this slow down? It doesn't benefit anyone.
Jeff Bezos.
I think was it Milan? Like there was a ship in the 1620s that they wanted the goods on the ship, but it came from like Cyprus or somewhere that had a plague, and it was like, no, the ship's fine. We don't need to quarantine them. And it was like, we really should quarantine them. And then in 2 years' time, half the population of Milan had been destroyed. I don't remember if it was Milan. It's probably not the right city, but something like that happened in the 1600s. And
that wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, are we reliving that? It's like, commerce trumps people. I don't know.
I think we're just
going to find out.
Palantir is going to save us. We're going to immediately track everybody, and we're going to pre-handle those people, and where handle could be, something nefarious or not. And
we'll get a Lysol injection.
We'll be
Clean
safe. There's some amazing artwork that's coming out for that. There's an amazing one that's, I don't know. I almost used it as a background, but you could see it anyway. So, bad news if you're a Facebook user still. 267 million Facebook profiles are for sale for about $600 on the dark web. The headline says $600. The article says $500. These are Facebook profiles that include your name, typically include the name, date of birth, phone number if you've provided it to Facebook, thanks Facebook, and some other information from your Facebook profile. This was they found this and it was taken down, and then it was immediately put back up with 47 million more records.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is still available on the dark web. This is bad news.
Who puts their phone number on Facebook is the real question.
Don't they require it now?
They used to require it for SMS messaging. Like if you wanted to get messages in real time, you had to provide your phone number.
Facebook's always desperate for my information.
Yeah.
They're always begging, like, hey, can you put your phone number in? Why don't you tell us where you work? And I'm like, no.
They got to figure out if you're into pseudoscience.
It's £500 or $600. Okay, that makes it more consistent. I don't think the pound sign was rendering on my phone for some reason.
Yeah. Facebook users. Who can have any sympathy for them?
Speaking of Facebook indirectly, let's talk about Instagram. Instagram no longer allows people without an account to view photos and videos on computers. As somebody who's been looking to try to find references for things, random things that I found in my house that are older and random things that I found in the building, there's always pictures on Instagram. And it is always impossible to load those pictures on Instagram because of this kind of BS.
It was annoying before because you had to do like the pop-up and it would eventually like pull up the login after you scrolled for a while, but now it's instant. Like you have to be logged in.
What do you think the conversion rate is to get accounts from this?
For me, it's only making me just want to completely exclude Instagram from my life at the router.
That's what Pinterest. So like Pinterest does the same bullshit. And now whenever I do like a Google image search, I always put like minus Pinterest because I don't want their results. And Instagram's going to do the same thing.
How does this affect embeds? Because you could do embeds on websites.
I think that still works. I think too, you can look at someone's profile and then if you click on the image, if you open the image in a new tab, it will work.
So couldn't you just pop the embed URL into whatever you're trying to look at, and it would render?
That, and also if you just use your browser's developer tools to switch to mobile view, it'll work a little bit better than it does on desktop.
But don't do that. Just don't go to Instagram, please.
Yeah. Instagram can just... I feel bad for people that have uploaded pictures to Pinterest and Instagram because the value of that platform is all in the data that users have uploaded. It would be very trivial to build that kind of a platform, although the hosting costs might be kind of high. But
really high.
In terms of like building a community platform where users can share information and connect with one another without being under the lens of like, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, I think there's maybe there's room for that. Maybe there's something other than Instagram. It's just that so many people are. It just seems like such a waste because all the content is locked up.
There was the guy last week the photographer, and once he put his stuff on Instagram, it's not his anymore.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot of artists use Instagram, and I've considered getting an account before, but it's like I just don't trust them, and I'm glad I didn't do it now.
You should only put that on level1text.com.
Yeah.
We have the technology. All right. That's the end of this episode. What do we got for tomorrow?
You would know that, not us.
Yeah, we don't have the one tabs. We have the stories, but not the one tab.
Well, business. Probably.
Oh, it should be all business.
Yeah, it's probably all business because there's like 20 business stories. So, a lot of business happening as usual. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Or not as usual. Bye! Hello. Today is April 29th. It's almost May. And we're here with Just Business. Just business all the time.
When you think of Level 1, you think it's just business.
Just business. It's going to be May.
We're holding up. We're still in the old teen. It's like I didn't get anything to drink. I'm completely out.
The quarantine, as they say.
Do you
Have
think
the cats settled down?
Yeah, are the cat's still fighting? Look at him.
He's here. He desperately wants to be on the chair, but I've been knocking him off of the chair.
Well, first up, we've got a bit of news. Some places in the U.S. are starting to kind of sort of return to work. And the first thing is Amazon has asked the workers staying at home, you got to return or you got to seek leave.
When they started this, did they start this in March?
Yeah, it's only been about 3 weeks for most Amazon people, and less, like some warehouses have been in operation continuously.
So when they started, I definitely wondered, it's like, how long are they going to let this go? Because this seems like too much of a disruption for their business model. But I don't know. Do you think it's any safer now?
No.
No.
And that's one of the things that he talks about is like, we're going to test every single Amazon employee and we're going to keep testing them. It's like when you get into the warehouse, we're going to test you. And by the end of the day, we're going to know if you're coming to work tomorrow or not.
But nowhere can get, actually, you know what? If anyone can get tests, it's probably Jeff Bezos, but I would believe that when I saw it.
They're selling private tests now. So I bet he has earmarked a huge shipment.
I don't think the private tests can work unless it's not the kind that require you to tickle your brain with a cotton swab. Because have you seen the video like where they're like, oh, this is how it has to work?
Yeah, and they shove it all the way up your nose.
Way up in your nose.
It's like, you know, the story about the Egyptian pharaohs.
Yeah.
Where they like scoop out the brains with the spoon.
Ice picks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, maybe there'll be like an Amazon employee there who just, goes deep.
I've got to go to the Amazon Fulfillment Center to pick up my home testing kit. I heard they've got a hammer and a swab. We're going to hammer this in until it stops moving.
Oh.
Well, the stories about the how they search you on the way in and out? Remember the lawsuit about they have to get paid for that?
Yeah.
So you show up to work, you get searched, you get a swab jammed up into your frontal lobe, and then you go and you do your horrible warehouse job, and on the way out, you got to go through all that again.
You're getting ready to go home for your shift, and you yell over at your socially distant co-worker named Tom. It's like, hey Tom, ever since I was swabbed this morning, I've been seeing sounds. The same thing happening to you. It's like, oh no, it's Yeah, a little casual brain damage here at the old warehouse. It's probably fine.
That's just the gas they're pumping in to stop the sick leave.
Your brain's being stimulated, just like your bank account was. Did you guys get your checks? Was your bank account stimulated?
No.
I said I didn't get one either.
Apple and Google pledged to shut down coronavirus tracker when the pandemic ends. I wonder if you can say pandemic.
Probably. I've
Well,
just
you
been
said-
saying the virus.
You said the both words, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So this is the thing about the one that France is doing with the Bluetooth that reports back is worse in both ways. Because France and Palantir are not going to turn theirs off. There's no chance. But do you think Apple and Google are really going to do that? That is some juicy advertising data, as we have previously discussed.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be like Facebook? You remember Facebook was offering people money to use their VPN. They were paying people to be spied on. Perhaps, it would be valuable enough to Google that they would pay for you to be spied on. But it really becomes an impossible situation, because if Google can identify you individually and they have the thing, what if they hold like a search for ransom? It's like, oh, we're not going to let you search or use any Google services unless we let you, or we can track you like this. You must let us do this. It's like, ooh.
That would definitely be in violation of the CCPA, right?
Yes.
And GDPR.
But only people in California could continue to enjoy the googly services.
Yeah, I would like to say that there would be a public backlash, but I don't think there would be.
No.
I don't think there would be. Switching to technology news a little bit, we had a little bit of drama this week. It's really interesting. WD sets the record straight, lists all drive that use slower shingled magnetic recording technology. So it was first noticed, I think, on Reddit r data hoarders that somebody were buying the higher end WD red drives. Historically, red drives have been meant for NAS drives, but the write performance was super lackluster, and it was behaving weirdly in RAID arrays. Well, it turns out they had been sold shingled magnetic recording WD red drives, and they were not marked as such.
But I like how they're like, okay, let's set the record straight. And the table they released, the record is, yes, that's what you've been doing across the entire line.
Yeah. Even
It
on the higher
condemns
end.
you.
Like a WD black drive is shingled. That makes no sense.
Well, I think that was the only one that was clean, though, right? Or was it purple?
Purple. So, the deal with shingled magnetic recording is that a lot of blocks have to be written. Like, so if you want to change one block in the middle of a group of blocks, that group of blocks has to be read in first, then the one block in the middle changed, and then the entire block written out. You can't just change a block in the middle, because the data is packed in so tightly that when you try to write to the middle, it'll corrupt the data on either side. And really what this is one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse for mechanical hard drives. If you think about it, like, remember CRTs? It's like we're shooting a beam of electrons and we're steering it with an electromagnetic coil, and then those electrons get converted to photons by this phosphorus-like material that we have on the inside of a glass tube. It is, a wonderful Rube Goldberg machine. In every way, a liquid crystal device is a lot simpler, more difficult to manufacture, but a lot simpler. So we're talking about sand that we've etched with a laser versus this wonderful contraption of spinning powerful magnets and copper coils and the most precision engineered, ferromagnetic platters on Earth. And so which one do you think is going to be less costly once we figure out how to mass produce sand?
I have no thoughts.
So yeah, this is the end of mechanical hard drives. The mechanical hard drives are only really good for insane densities that we have not yet been able to achieve on silicon in quantity. Oh, and it's not just Western Digital; it's also Toshiba and Seagate. I bet everybody's thankful that Seagate and Toshiba are thankful that Western Digital draw most of the public's ire, but all three of them were doing it. And they all three started doing it at roughly the same time, which that doesn't suggest collusion at all.
It's disappointing because the only reason you want those big drives anymore is for NAS and stuff like that. So you're almost always going to be using them in a group.
Yeah.
It seems like maybe they're not making money on that anymore and they want to destroy it as a group.
Yeah, probably true. It was mostly the smaller capacities, but like
What was
WD
the ones
Red.
in the middle on some of them?
Yeah, and WD Red is specifically meant for 24/7 operation, because remember, like, WD Green is like, oh, this hard drive is only really meant to be on 8 hours a day, and it's like, well, that was disappointing, but it's like, I mean, all right, fine, it is less expensive, and now even the drives meant for 24/7 operation, it's like, this is not a good use case for a NAS unless you never rewrite the data. Yeah. Our next story, it makes sense, kind of. Instacart hired 300,000 workers in a month. It plans to hire 250,000 more. Turns out that with this thing that we have going on, if you had a really good online shopping experience for buying groceries and crap like that, you're doing insane business. Jeff Bezos is $23 billion richer because Amazon is literally at capacity. They can't handle any more online orders. It's just nuts. So Instacart, services like that, services like Amazon where they do everything for you or as much as possible for you, it makes sense that those businesses are record growth right now, because where else are you going to get your milk and eggs?
But Instacart just goes to a local grocer and picks up your order, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that way more of a risk? I guess if you're reducing the overall number of people, it wouldn't be. But then you've got one person who's continually going into the danger zone and then going to individual addresses.
Yeah, if it's anything like the office deliveries have been, they've been basically just leaving things on the porch. They're like, oh, you're at the office? Here, I'm just going to leave this on the porch. And they've been really keeping their distance. I
saw that Pizza Hut is advertising something called zero contact delivery on their site. I'm not sure. I guess they just leave it, outside or something. Interesting.
It's like your pizza will buzz until you pick it up. That's neat.
The other interesting thing about this Instacart thing, and something that drives me crazy about modern online ordering, because we're not using cash, you pre-tip, which is the stupidest thing in the world.
You can revoke your tip with Instacart.
Well, and that's what these people are doing.
Yeah, and what a nasty thing to do, because I guess you can pick and choose which order you want to take. So they scalp the best tips, but then the people game that by removing the tip later.
Yeah. That's disappointing. That would probably make me rage. I think that would probably only work once or twice. Like in an area like ours, you figure there's probably only like 100 delivery drivers, and it would probably only take you a couple of months to go through all of them, and they'll be like, I remember that address. They stiffed me on a tip.
Yeah.
You're getting broken eggs after that first one.
Or you're just not getting your stuff delivered. You have to wait. Even just doing like grocery pickup, you usually have to wait a few days around here, and we don't live in a very high population density area.
Well, it's not normal circumstances, though.
Yeah.
I don't have a segue for the next story, but TechCrunch says that Elon Musk says Starlink Internet private beta to begin in roughly 3 months and public beta in 6. So you're eligible for the beta if you're in northern latitudes. So that's like Canada, northern United States. They asked about Germany, and he said, maybe Germany, yeah, maybe, possibly. So they've been launching Starlink satellites. They've got enough of a constellation that they can keep you continuously connected. These are low Earth orbit internet providing satellites. So the satellite that your earthbound equipment is connected to changes depending on the time. So it's just sort of a continuous connection. There's not enough in the constellation to provide continuous connection in like the southern United States. There will be in about a year, but for right now, not so much.
So one of the areas that really needed good internet connection, just like, just don't worry about them.
I'm sure a lot of those mountainous places in the upper latitudes. Canada certainly has plenty of places that I'm sure get terrible internet.
Can you imagine if the Yukon becomes a desirable place for people to live because low population density, you can get everything you need delivered and you've got amazing internet access?
You know what it's going to be really great for is those Alaskan homesteaders on the Discovery Channel.
Oh, we could become those people if we could get decent internet.
I'm not sure we could. I don't think we have the skills required.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not ready to be that level of off the grid.
So everybody thinks that the economy is going to go back to normal just as soon as everybody goes back to work. But then there's stories like this that make me think maybe not so much. CNBC says that Google is going to cut, or Google has announced that it has cut its marketing budgets by as much as half, and the directors have been warned of hiring freezes. So Google is tightening its belt.
But Google, you would argue, is benefiting from all of this.
Yes.
So
Oh, for sure, yeah.
a business who is, like really doing well is still taking precautions. That's a little scary.
Well, I mean, you have to think too, though. Like for Google, do they really need that much marketing at this point?
Yeah,
like, I can
because
see why they might cut it, even if
it's
this.
we're not talking about like the people using Google search. We're talking about people using like ads and stuff.
Yeah, but still,
So
yeah.
they're trying to convince people. It's like, hey, look how much more traffic we can bring to you. Because we've had customers who are skeptical of AdWords. It's like, what is this really going to do for me?
Yeah.
Or hiring people to help manage those accounts or whatever. But I think it's also a deeper reflection in that Google needs less people supporting the people buying ads from them. Because let's face it, most agencies don't have any idea what they're doing. So when they go to Google and they buy millions of dollars of ads, Google has to help them spend the money a little bit. But if no one is buying the ads, Google doesn't need the staff to support that.
You got to teach them how to target the pseudoscience people. Because they're not going to think about that.
Taking that category out now, how are we going to sell it?
That's Facebook.
I bet Google's got one.
I'm sure they do.
Well, that's your tech support call. You call Google up, and it's like, all right, I've got a product. It's called Goop. What categories do you think that I should target with my product?
Homeopathy enthusiasts. That's the
People with more money than sense.
I think a lot of those people don't have any money.
Yeah. Bloomberg. Another Bloomberg article. Apple aims to sell Macs with its own chips starting in 2021. The new processors will be based on the iPhone designs, replacing Intel, and the transitions will be gradual and start with less powerful computers. So I think Apple is making a big mistake here. But one way that this could work is if they have systems that have both the ARM and the Intel CPU, because the CPUs that are in like the iPad, which is the kind they're talking about here, don't use very much power at all. So if you want to be able to run iPad apps natively on like an Apple laptop, you can just throw that in there. It doesn't really cost much. It doesn't really make the system more complicated. It doesn't really eat that much power. And that would be a great transition laptop. If they all of a sudden switch, probably not in for the best user experience.
Yeah, but they're only going to do the bottom of the lineup. So how many of those people are just email and web browser anyway? They could definitely get away with it.
We'll see. We'll see how the iPad with the keyboard and mouse attachment is doing really well. So it's really just a question of like what the software experience is and what the operating system is. Because at the very low end, I would think it's just an iPad. Like you don't even have Mac OS at that point. It's just straight up iPad. Or iPad with a keyboard.
They got to fix the file browser before it can be really useful, I think. But
No, you just use the cloud, Krista. The file browsers are that's for losers.
so annoying.
We do have one Zoom story this week. So, there's that, which is despite all the problems that we've covered over the last several weeks, Zoom daily users has surged to 300 million despite the privacy woes. Literally no one cares. Everyone is so desperate for human contact that they just don't. It's like this is being sold to like East African warlords. It's like, it's probably fine.
I can't wait for the Eastern Kentucky warlords.
We had to do a Zoom call this week, and I was kind of surprised. It's like, wow, these guys don't read the headlines, do they?
Wait, who did you have to do? Well, I can't. You can't tell me, but
For
who's asking you to do Zoom?
the thing that's going away.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
9 to 5.
They didn't want to use Teams?
See, the problem with Teams is it doesn't have like the whole reason that Zoom is successful is you click the link and you're in the meeting. There's not
no scheduling and Outlook
BS.
and yeah.
Yeah, I mean you can, but it's just not. I don't know. I don't know. 9 to 5 Google reports that the Motorola Edge and the Edge Plus go official as the company's first flagships in years. I think flagships should be in quotation marks here because haven't they announced that these are not going to be the highest end processors and the highest end camera setup? It's high end, but not insane like what Samsung's doing.
Well, nobody's buying the really high end processor from Qualcomm. I think you can go higher, but this is, it's the best one that Motorola's going to give you.
Verizon is carrying the Motorola Edge Plus exclusively starting on May 14th. The phone will cost $1,000 on the carrier site for $41.66 a month. Ew.
You think
it
people
does seem like a crowded market?
Yeah, is anyone really buying phones right now?
There's like 30 million people that are definitely not buying phones right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if your phone is garbage and your battery sucks right now, and you're trying to survive just with a phone, you're probably dying for a new phone. Plus, a lot of irresponsible people have $1,200.
That's true.
What kind of phone can I get for? There's the Samsung. I think it's the Samsung A320, 320, 360, something like that. It's basically a Galaxy S8 with a little bit worse screen, and they tweaked the battery. And that phone is like $250. So that is a Galaxy S8 for $250, given that they're not doing the massive upgrade, and it's a brand new battery. I mean, that's a brand new phone. That seems like a really good deal. They also had the Pixel 3 for $200 last week. So if you're desperate for a phone, do that. Don't do this.
Might be some inventory buildup.
Yeah. Speaking of people abandoning things, or maybe the economy's bringing the financial something into focus, AT&T has lost another 900,000 subscribers. I love these stories because we predicted it. Like, we called it. So obvious.
So that's $1 million a year, or $3 million a year average. They've got 18 million left. What do you think the tipping point is when it just goes away? Because it's going to accelerate. It's going to snowball.
I think we've already crossed the tipping point financially. Like, it's unrecoverable. Like, the investment that AT&T had to acquire these subscribers and the DirecTV investment, I think it's all right down at this point.
Meanwhile, was there a Netflix story? Probably not, because I don't see it here. But Netflix gained incredible numbers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They blew it out of the water. So I think a lot of people were stuck at home, and it was people who, they might watch 1 or 2 TV shows a week, and they watch the news and they watch sports, and all of a sudden there's no sports, and all of a sudden they have all this time to kill, and they're looking at the TV and they're like, this is garbage. Yeah, let's just switch. Let's just get
rid of everything. Now, AT&T did actually report subscriber growth in their fiber optics. That was the only place they had subscriber growth. But they lost so many customers on DSL that it didn't make up for the gains that they had on fiber. And the dude from AT&T, his quote is hilarious. It's literally, we're losing so many customers on DSL because other options are moving into those areas and people are switching immediately.
Other options that aren't from the 90s?
Yeah. Maybe it's time to upgrade some of our stuff so we can compete. Nah. Let's not do that.
Another statement he made is they're just doubling down. They're like, nah, we're not going to lower prices, because he didn't say this, but the unspoken thing here is this is old technology. We're just going to let it die. We're just going to raise prices to try to offset it.
They said that before. They're in a death spiral. I mean, that will only accelerate the rate at which people leave the platform. That just seems nuts. CNBC also, the New York Attorney General opens an inquiry into Charter Communications' response to the thing after hundreds reportedly catch the thing. So this is field service technicians, but also their call centers. Their call centers, apparently, they were like, nope, we can't shut down. No, you're packed in like sardines. We're not going to give you a face mask. We're not going to give you anything. You just need to keep working. And a lot of people got sick.
Did you see his statement at the bottom? It was like, yeah, most of you have to be here because you can't do your jobs from home. Meanwhile, the people are like, but look at these other companies doing the job from home. But then another statement, he was like, and some of you, I understand, can do your jobs from home, but that's not how we want you to do it. We really appreciate if you come in.
Yeah.
Also, you
Thanks for
skipped
putting
one.
yourself at risk.
Yeah. I'd say the New York State will investigate and they will find the ever living bejesus out of them, but I could be wrong.
You missed Magic Leap.
Yeah.
Oh, the Magic Leap. Oh no. Okay. Magic Leap has cut half of its jobs in a major restructuring. This is again like another story from Captain Obvious. They're going to focus on commercial customers now. That's it. Just commercial.
Maybe, you know what? If they could figure out how to put thermal imaging on those, maybe they'll have a short future.
It's like, just look at this. It's like, oh, all of my enemies are colored in red. Okay.
But yeah, I don't understand. Do you think the board, the people at Magic Leap, do you think they actually think it's going to work? Or are they just trying to just milk as much money as they can from it in salary?
I think that they want to do as much as they possibly can because they realize that they may have created a Theranos type situation, and they want to try to make it look as legit as possible before going full Theranos. That's
For
just
the
me.
lawsuits?
Though. Yeah, it's like, the investor dollars, and it's like, it's like we may have overstated what it was capable of, and some
For
other
the
things
documentary
like that.
filmmakers who will get rich off of the project after.
The investors are looking around. And it's like, oh man, have we been Theranos? It's like, no, they're still operating. There's still a chance. It's like, no, they're done. I don't really understand our next story. It's from The Verge. The headline is Nvidia's GeForce Now will lose access to titles from Xbox Game Studios and Warner Brothers, and also Don't Starve and other stuff from Clay.
I actually don't know how you pronounce that. It's
Clay Entertainment.
K-L-E-I.
It's Don't Starve and something Ninja.
Oxygen not included.
Yeah, so I don't get why these companies don't like having their games available on a streaming service.
It's because of Stadia. Because with Nvidia, you don't buy the game again. But with Stadia, you just stream your Nvidia one from your Steam account. But with Stadia, you have to buy the game again. So they don't want you to get free access to that game you bought.
It seems like it's my game, and I will do with it as I please.
Yeah, well, Nvidia and all those companies disagree.
Well,
but the thing is, they let you have all these games in the beta.
It's Xbox Game Studios and Warner Brothers. Nvidia is saying, yeah, we can stream your game, but Xbox Game Studios and Warner Brothers are saying no.
No, but Nvidia could just say, you know what, screw them. We're gonna let you do what you want. They're afraid of getting sued.
Oh yeah.
Because you don't really need their permission. Like you say, it's your game. Why couldn't you stream it? But
you
they
can
would
with Steam
definitely
in-home
get sued.
streaming. I wonder what kind of letters that Gabe has gotten, because the Steam streaming app is really good. And remember, it was like kind of problematic for a while on iPads, but it's pretty good on iPads now, from what I understand. And it just streams from your home computer playing the game to like your iPad or whatever. I wonder if Valve has gotten any angry grams.
I don't know. I mean, it probably depends on whether or not your loss from being kicked off of Steam would be way worse than any possible gains.
Like you're not gonna let somebody who bought your game stream it to another device? Like, what sort of like? I mean, that's just draconian control for no reason.
Well, I mean, listen, Nintendo Switch is basically just another online store at this point, and all those indie games are on there, but you got to buy them again.
That's not acceptable. I
People
bought
are
the only
accepting
game.
it.
The only game that I bought multiple times is Final Fantasy II for the SNES, and that was just because it was like $5. It was like, well, the original version wasn't $5, but then it was like, I want to replay that, and then it was like, okay, I guess I'll have to buy it again. Whatever.
Remember that Nintendo still charges like $5 for Super Mario Brothers.
That's crazy. That's a license to print money.
It's just the ROM. It's one of the pirated ROMs.
Oh, Those bastards. Well, Whole Foods is tracking unionization risk with a heat map. What could be insidious about that?
This was amazing, and then like the 3-point prong plan they have here for tracking that and figuring out like it was crazy stuff like how close are you to the nearest union? How happy are your employees? How much money do they make? The money one was like a weird inverse. Like the less, or is it the more money you make, the more likely you are to unionize?
Yeah.
Just doesn't make any sense.
It's weird.
You gotta think though, like,
ads.
what do you think the annual cost of anti-union efforts is for the Amazon umbrella?
Versus the cost of paying for the union?
Yeah.
Probably a tiny fraction of the cost of paying for the union.
I guess. I wonder if you just put that into their salaries, would that help stave off unions better?
It only takes one person in the union to get brain cancer to completely wreck everybody else's premium. Which is not something you should... Like, that shouldn't be a thing that should ever be said, but is a thing, actually, apparently.
Yeah, you're screwed either way. But it is interesting how far they'll go. Also, what a crazy job to have. You know, like jobs that'll just crush your soul. If you're the guy who's designing the anti-union, program.
That's got to be one click above the Facebook content filter.
Well, at least they can say they're doing something good for the world.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing good for the world, China has rolled out a pilot test of digital currency. China's central bank has introduced a homegrown digital currency, and it's running internal tests across Shenzhen, Chengdu, and Xiong'an. I don't think I got that right. That's a satellite of Beijing, so it's part of Beijing, basically. Yeah, so this is going to be used by the central bank for just tracking payments. So, don't get your knickers in a twist. It's not really cryptocurrency. It's really just a transaction tracking service for tracking transactions handled in regular local currency.
But they could turn it off. And what they don't talk about in this story, which is interesting, they left that out, is this will absolutely be part of your social score. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, oh, your social score has dipped below this amount. You can no longer buy alcohol till you get it back up. Or you can't have
Take
tobacco.
the bus.
What was that?
These cats are losing their minds.
Did you give them too much catnip?
No, this is just how it is all the time.
No, it's greenies they all fight over.
Oh yeah, they love the greenies. I got a box that I cut a hole out of for them to to run it out of, but I cut the hole too small for Toads. He's too fat. So what you're hearing is when he manages to walk it to a wall and brace it to stuff himself in there, and then he bolts out of it. He carries it around like a shell, and you're hearing him drag it.
Aww.
I don't know how I could segue from that to our next story, which is about the Surface Go 2, which is apparently imminently going to be released in May sometime. It's got a larger 10.5-inch display and thinner bezels. It's got a 4 gigabyte, 64 gig version, which I think is a crime against humanity, and an 8 gig, 128 gig version, which is also, I know they got to cut costs, but come on. 1 terabyte of flash is only like $90 these days. 128 gigs, by the time you get Windows 10 installed, you've got like 3 gigs left. I don't even know how they're doing it on the 64 gig version.
I would love to get one of those 4 gig versions and just test how many Chrome tabs we could operate in that thing.
It'd be 0.5.
Yeah, I included that story without reading it first, and as I was reading it, I was like, yeah, this is really underwhelming.
Yeah, and then 64 gigs is not even an SSD, it's an eMMC, which is like a soldered-on multimedia card, so it's slow and crappy. The more expensive one is based around the Core M3 8100Y, so maybe it's not terrible, but 128 gig SSD, come on. Come on. Really? Come on.
You got to use the OneDrive, buddy.
Rumor has it they'll also have an LTE option, so you can have always-on internet connectivity. Maybe that's okay. On our last story, and this story should not surprise any of you at all, because we literally said this was going to happen. T-Mobile confirms it's going to brick 5G on most Sprint 5G phones post-merger. The one phone that 5G will continue to work on, that's the Galaxy S20. If you don't have a Galaxy S20, it's time to get a Galaxy S20, because that's the only phone they're going to support for the legacy customers, I guess, or else the only phone they're going to support for 5G for the legacy customers. So
this really is a microcosm of the whole 5G bait and switch or falsehood, fiction, because they're talking about, it's like, oh, well, one company used this kind of 5G, but that wasn't the same kind of 5G as this 5G. And these phones don't have this piece that you're going to need for this new 5G. And it's just like, well, wasn't this supposed to be a standard? Shouldn't we agree on these things?
Well, shouldn't we agree on these things before we start rolling out the technology? And yeah. And the hilarious thing is that they do use the same spectrum. So the wireless spectrum will be divided up and used in a different way. So when T-Mobile takes down these Sprint 5G networks, it's going to reuse the spectrum. It just can't use the same equipment to talk on that spectrum because of those incompatibilities.
But they will give you a nice little discount on your S20. So upgrade like a good consumer.
The best discount that I saw in there was if you bought one of those micro cell towers, because your service kind of sucked, and you bought it from Sprint, if you paid outright for it, they'll give you $300 to buy it back, which actually seems kind of fair. Although I think new they cost around $700-800, so that's maybe not the best. Oh, I've lost my headphone. Well, that's it for the news for today. Friday we've got a lot of nonsense and robot and
the
design?
Best category.
We got one design story.
Best category is nonsense.
Yeah, nonsense is really robot. Really, we've got one robot story that's going to be the bridge from robot to nonsense. It's pretty great. We'll see you Friday.
Bye. What day is it going to be? Oh, May 1st.
April's gone. April
It
died.
is. It is. Have we hit record?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, it's May 1st. We're here with the nonsense and robot section and one design story. Yay! You guys missed Ryan's cats earlier.
Oh,
We're
and security. Sorry. We also have a couple security stories.
Oh, yeah, I see that now.
We're all dying slowly. It doesn't matter.
We're all dead.
That's
We just don't know yet.
There's never a time when we're not doing that.
I'm just losing my mind.
I don't even.
You think it'll be like RimWorld, where at some point you just break and just wander into a social situation?
I'm living in RimWorld.
A dazed. You go into a daze and then you dig up a corpse somewhere in your neighborhood, bring it back, put it on your kitchen table, and then everyone gets upset because there's a corpse on the table.
That would have so much more extreme ramifications in the real world as it does in RimWorld, where everybody just kind of overlooks it.
Yeah, everyone's just like, oh, there's a corpse in here. Someone put it back.
I accidentally forgot to close the old browser. It's fine now. It's fine. But you know what's not fine? Nintendo. Did you know you can set up two-factor on your Nintendo account? You kind of need to. Nearly 160,000 Nintendo accounts have been compromised in a massive hack. Massive hack.
That's they say that I guess you have a credit card on file with Nintendo. Is that what's going on there? Because they can buy things with your account.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then I guess they'll sell that.
They can, and you can do the Fortnite V-Bucks thing as well because of the whole Epic partnership.
Ah, man. Fortnite. I guess Fortnite has only become more powerful during the lockdown as well.
Yeah, a lot of people are playing games right now. The new game is Valorant, but all caps, Valorant.
Is that the CSGO Overwatch crossover?
Yeah, it seems to borrow more from CSGO than Overwatch, but yeah, I've seen a lot of people streaming it.
Have you tried it?
No, I don't. I don't think it's like open yet. I think it's just like
Oh.
closed beta to like certain streamers.
Well, do they not know that you're Platinum Overwatch?
Yeah, I'm ready to go pro as soon as they give me that key.
You know what else was leaked this week, but it was kind of overblown because it's actually an old leak? Valve says it's safe to play CSGO and TF2 after source code leaked online. So, old 2017 source code from Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, and Team Fortress 2 leaked online today on 4chan. Not today, but when his article was written. And it was kind of an old leak, but a lot of people made a big deal about it. Like, oh, you can, your stuff can be compromised and don't play, blah, blah, blah. But Valve says, no, that's fake news.
I did like reading some people took screenshots of like comments in the code. I was like, I didn't know I worked for Valve. Because they're just like really salty comments. Like, I had to add this because it's stupid.
Well, can you imagine, the kind of nasty feedback we get with our stuff and getting it from those hardcore CSGO players?
Oh, yeah.
That has to be miserable.
Yeah. So it's not really anything new. Valve knew about this in 2017, and they I guess they negotiated with the attackers or something, and so this was kept under wraps. But then I guess this was compromised again, or the copies that attacker made somehow leaked out. So this is there's some juicy drama that goes with that, but I don't know. Who cares?
Not me.
It doesn't affect those of us who are terrible at online shooters.
Yeah. Somebody had to stop playing for 4 hours while it was sorted. Big deal. I think this was a move designed to discredit an individual more than somebody that was like, look at me, I hacked some source code. I don't know. It just seems. I have a feeling this is not the last we've heard of this story, but we'll see. Google will make all advertisers approve their identities so people can see who they are and in which country they're in. It didn't already have this, apparently, which seems surprising.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it would be that big a step since they have to give you money.
But it turns out, it's like, oh, you're the mafia? No, yeah, just get a credit card, plastic, cut us a check. We don't care.
Hi, yes, I need to take out an American political ad, and I'll be paying in non-American currency. It's fine. Don't question it. Just take my money.
Well, they did say that political
I'll be paying
ads...
in oil.
Huh? Go ahead.
No, you say I'm going to pay in oil.
Yeah.
That's the currency I want to give you.
I don't think you can use it to pay things right now in oil because they pay you to take oil, right? Isn't it still a negative price?
For the lower grades, yes, which is hilarious.
Google did clarify that, because a lot of news organizations started writing this up, and Google did want to emphasize that for political ads, they've been doing this since 2018. Now it's just all ads in general. So I guess this is amid the whole pandemic thing that we're in right now because some people are trying to weaponize that. So it's not exactly a political ad, but it's still useful to know who's advertising what.
Well, it'd be nice with the whole pseudoscience categories, the people advertising the Lysol.
I would like to see Google come out and affirmatively be like, here are our advertising and targeting categories. Notice that pseudoscience and homeopathic medicine, and those are not categories that you can target.
I bet they have even more embarrassing ones. I mean, these are the people who let you target by race.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Vice has an interesting story as well. Researchers say they caught an iPhone 0-day hack in the wild. And this one was especially egregious because you could email somebody that uses an iPhone and it would silently open this thing in the background and run arbitrary code, at least according to the researchers.
Wow.
I like how in this article they're like, well, you don't need to worry about this because only really important people need to worry about this. But what if a really important person is reading that article?
Yeah. It's like, oh no.
They don't read Vice.
Probably true.
They're trying to redirect a shipment of the Level 1 KVMs to Russia. No. I don't know. We don't use iPhones, though, so that'd be tricky. I like how, there's this false sense of security just because Apple is draconian with, trying to lock down their platforms, that it is actually more secure when, in fact, almost all the applications written on the iPhone are a garbage tier security. It's just there's so many layers of obfuscation that it's a pain in the ass that nobody wants to fool with.
I mean, it still produces the same result, I guess.
Apple did respond, and they said that Apple takes all reports of security threats seriously. We've thoroughly investigated the researchers' report, and based on the information provided, have concluded that these issues do not pose an immediate risk to our users. But they did identify 3 issues in Mail, but alone they are insufficient to bypass iPhone and iPad security protections. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they walk that back in the next couple of days. Speaking of overreach, Stripe is silently recording your movements on its customers' websites. So Stripe is a credit card processor, and it used to be that Stripe only wanted you to embed its JavaScript code on the payment processing page, but now they want you to embed their JavaScript code on all pages. And it does that for fraud detection, so it can try to tell if it's a bot testing credit cards, or so they say. But it turns out that like any mouse movement or click or anything, any kind of like analytics that you might think of, that's all being reported to Stripe. Kind of sneaky, if you ask me.
I like Stripe's response to this, which was what you said, fraud detection, but that goes way too far for fraud detection.
Yeah.
Because that's super useful if you can tell, an advertiser exactly when someone backs out of a transaction.
Yeah. It's also true that like things like a mobile phone. So like if you're in a mobile phone emulator, the accelerometer never changes. But if you're on a real mobile phone, the accelerometer information is not privileged. So if the accelerometer information is changing in the background, chances are you're on a real phone, not a simulated one. Lots of little gotchas like that. So, have you guys heard of a company called Cognizant? I hadn't before this article. TechCrunch reports that Cognizant confirms May's ransomware attack and says customers face disruption. So this is almost a $20 billion a year IT consulting company for the Fortune 500 that has been hit with ransomware. It's a little scary.
Pretty nasty ransomware too, and so bad that they actually like gave financial guidance based on it. So, can you imagine if these guys were working from home and all of a sudden it's like, oh God.
Somebody's going to have to go into the office to deal with this.
Everybody's going to have to go to the office.
And that's it for security. And next up, we've got our one design story. Krista, I'll let you explain this because my eyes go cross-eyed for design things.
Yeah, I don't really understand like the use case for this yet. Times New Arial mutates familiar fonts into something wholly new. So basically, this is just taking 2 typefaces, Arial and Times New Roman, and then it's more of like a technical accomplishment than a visual one, just looking at it, where it kind of blends them together. And I think the way they make it sound is that it would just be one source file.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is like if you look at the animated like piece GIF thing, it's like think about some of the people that we've dealt with that it's just like, oh, this needs to be like 2 more pixels, and it's like, okay, you can specify this in a web-safe way now, so somebody can literally spend 8 or 10 billable hours making the CSS properties of this font the exact way that they want, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, see, this from a technical perspective, I like this because it means that I don't have to harass a client for 20 different fonts that they need that we then have to include, which is each one of those is an HTTP request. But I don't know how like useful it would be for me as a designer.
Well, I took it more as I thought it was like because how fonts can change based on the responsiveness. I thought it was going to try to use the best font to fit in whatever container it had.
I don't think so. Maybe that is.
I think it's just changing the style and like all the parameters of the font, like how italic it is and all that stuff. You can control that.
Yeah, it's all just one file instead of having to like, because each time if you're doing like a true italic versus a faux italic, those are 2 separate declarations.
Yeah, Krista, aren't you on about like the ligatures and stuff? And it's like, no, this file doesn't have the correct ligatures to make.
Yeah, so like sometimes they'll tell you like, oh, make this font bolder, but you could do a faux bold where it will just randomly put like an extra stroke around the whole character, but then it looks weird. So ideally, you would have a separate font file with the bold style that was designed by a typographer. This is like more like a faux bold, I think, based on the article. But then if you read to the very bottom, they're like, the research people who did this are like, we don't really know what the use case is for this yet. It's kind of just a research thing. So
the use case is to get clicks.
Yeah.
Well, it worked brilliantly.
Succeeded. Yeah. I think this is it's a cool idea. I don't know about the execution yet. I'm not sure, what the use case is.
What would be the two worst fonts to marry like this?
Arial and Times New Roman.
I'm thinking like Comic Sans and Zapfino.
There's like seven people in the audience laughed at that engagement challenge. Let us know who you are in the comments.
Well, everyone knows Comic Sans. Zapfino's like a script font. It would be really hideous.
Somebody's going to link to their homework project, which implements this with those two fonts.
Ugh.
So bad.
It would be very bad.
And then I have a great transition story for like design and crossover, because as you might imagine, with the economy basically being shut down, not a lot of advertising going on. A lot of ad agencies are looking around real nervous. Well, good news from the New York Times: an ESPN commercial hints at advertising's deep fake future. So ESPN, this ad agency and ESPN came up with a deep faked commercial. They took like a young version of an announcer and deep faked the old announcer onto a young version of himself in kind of an obvious way that was meant as like tongue-in-cheek humor, but it actually freaked a lot of people out, which the ad agency probably thinks is great.
Oh, well, it's free advertising for them.
Well, he referenced the documentary in the time frame the documentary was about, which was the late 90s. But I got to think, so ESPN has got to be getting killed, right? There are no sports.
ESPN's
This documentary probably got more views than it ever could have hoped. These guys are the best thing that could have ever happened to them was complete removal of sports from the world. The month that their documentary about the Bulls' reign of terror comes out.
And the deep fake, which actually worked really well. And the article sort of supposes that, hey, we might see a lot of deep fakery because, if Woody Harrelson or another actor like that doesn't have to be involved in the production of, like, say, a car commercial, they could probably be just fine with taking a check and then having some other actor do it. Like, probably don't care.
Yeah, it kind of reduces the demand for actors even more. If I can just do this with a program, why bother?
In this case, they had the guy. But what happens when you want JFK to sell your car? Because there's public domain videos of JFK. Is that okay? Can we do that?
Who owns the rights to JFK's likeness after he dies?
Well, right now they can't film regular commercials, so I could see like this being very useful.
I want to see Fuller House with the Ron Swanson guy, but instead of Ron Swanson, it's JFK.
But they make the argument here. It's like, oh well, are we ever going to be able to trust advertisements again? Who trusts them now? It's a silly argument.
I only trust influencers.
It's the only reason we have. Meta humor there.
Stacy's like angry over there in the corner.
Well, on to robots. The robot will see you now. A Boston hospital is using Spot, the dog-like robot of the internet fame, to screen for corona thingy. Almost. Yeah. So this is the Boston Dynamics robot. Boston Dynamics actually open sourced a lot of the stuff that runs on this so that medical workers can use this, and so they're using it for screening and other things like that interact with a lot of people because, well, you can do it with a robot now.
I like how they talked about the reason you need Spot for this, because they're like, yeah, we've got robots that could do this job, but they don't work in the quarantine tents outside in the grass. They're only for the inside hospital people.
The tile floor.
They talk about adding parts to him, and I can't help but imagine a Spot with like a vaccine scorpion tail.
No, like one of the nose swabs. Yeah.
This looks like
it just holds you down and gets it up your nose.
It looks like the hardware they added to this is some cardboard and an iPad.
Also has a pouch on its tail.
Yeah.
So is it like the old avalanche dogs, but instead of bringing you some whiskey to warm you up, it's bringing you some vaccine?
Open your nostrils, human.
But they said that this checks you out when you're checking in, so that when you come to the hospital, you don't have to actually be next to a doctor. But they talked about they like the Spot's mobility because he could like move around you and check you from all angles. How awkward is that? You're just like
Mostly just
perfectly still, and the spot's just circling you menacingly.
You may feel a pinch. What? What are you doing back? Oh. Yeah, I don't know. Also, robots built for good or evil, I don't know. People are making bots to snatch Whole Foods delivery order time slots. I love the artwork here. Krista, what do you think?
This is I have a lot of questions about this artwork.
Robbie McSausage arms.
It was low effort.
Well, I don't think it was though, because it's like they took individual images and photoshopped them out.
The graphic designer was furloughed.
Yeah, and then they just like they removed the background from the sausage, as you can tell, because it's all like jagged, and then they photoshopped it onto a robot. So there was some effort put into it, but it's like the weirdest type of effort.
So just think about, I mean, we take this for granted, but this really shows you the amazing leap forward in technology. Just look at that headline and imagine going back to the 1950s and reading that sentence to another human being.
What's life going to be like in 2020?
Because it shows this amazing like robot technology, but also a terrible darkness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we seem to be at a truce with our local grocery delivery thing for the office because I've still got the regular office restock orders coming in. And so now, because I've been canceling, every time they substitute the water, I cancel it. I'm like, nope, I don't want that. And so they have to take it back. And so now they've gotten to where they'll substitute, like we get 3 cases of water or 4 cases of water. They'll substitute one of the cases of water. And it's like, all right, I'll take that. That's fine. So it is sort of interesting how that's working out.
You think that's a human decision?
To do the substitution? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
There's probably a human component to it. If not, that's a damn good AI. It's like, okay, he's going to reject it if we substitute it. Let's substitute a little bit.
My cats are now attacking my power cord. Hang on a second. Actually, don't hang on. Just continue without them. I got to take my headphones.
Or just put them up in the camera.
This is probably my favorite story of the week.
Stop it.
An Ailing Intelsat satellite begins new life in orbit after historic servicing mission success. So basically, there was a satellite in orbit that was out of fuel, and we launched another satellite to strap a fuel pack to this old satellite, and that worked successfully. We were able to launch the satellite and get that satellite to connect to this satellite, and it still works, and everything is under control, and so this satellite will continue to be useful, which seems amazing.
I'm gonna be honest. I was only half listening because like I just saw Ryan's camera just go tumbling, and now there's kitty cat. Look how happy.
Yeah, the cats were attacking the power cord apparently. So
look at him. Chat's gonna love that.
Support Crouton and Toast's food budget at patreon.com/level1.
Greenies. Oh, he's so happy. Makes me want to go pet Rue.
Basically, this was an old satellite that launched in 2001, and it was perfectly. We're still using it, which is pretty awesome that we're using satellite technology that old. But it was out of fuel, so basically we just strapped it a new fuel system. Like we didn't refuel this one; we literally just bolted on more stuff to this satellite, and then that stuff can be controlled remotely. So, works pretty well.
You think they'll get another 20 years out of it?
I would hope that we're not still using a 40-year-old satellite. That would be like using Sputnik in the 90s. That'd be bad.
The thing that immediately came to my mind about this is what's going to stop me from grabbing somebody else's satellite?
Yeah, you think this is like a subtle flex to like Russia or something? That's like, we see your spy satellite in orbit. Look what we can do.
And then you got to build another satellite that's bigger that captures the satellite thief satellite.
No, you're not going far enough with that. It's literally battle bots in space.
What?
Because we have to weaponize our satellites. So if there's a rogue satellite coming to our satellites, it gets out like the spinny saws or the flamethrower or something like that.
No, we're gonna
so
have the Space Force. Yeah,
well,
the Space Force will be out there protecting those.
Space Force can't be scrambled quickly enough. They can only pick up the carnage.
A 3-day launch. Although satellites move slow, maybe one satellite could run from the other one while you scramble the Space Force. And every encounter will only cost about $1 billion.
Vice has another story. This is another one of my favorites. This open source program deepfakes you during Zoom meetings in real time. We should probably turn this into its own video on like step-by-step how to install this. So they've got a screenshot here of someone that has deepfaked themselves as Elon Musk. And
why would you be so happy to see him in your Zoom call?
So can we?
You think the guy tried the accent?
No, well, I mean, it's just the video. It doesn't do the audio.
No, what I was saying, did he try to do the accent to like sell it?
I kind of doubt it.
She looks like she just got proposed to, and it's just, a fake Elon Musk on a chat room call.
Well, he's a billionaire. She's immediately in love. It didn't seem like it was that great, but they're going to improve this, and I don't know. It's going to be huge, especially if the lockdown continues. How long before you think the government steps in and says, no, we got to regulate this. We can't have this.
Probably as soon as something embarrassing happens.
What if somebody were to do something like insanely stupid, like impersonate a powerful person in the government and suggest people do something really medically risky?
I've got some Tide Pods in a martini glass back here. I think we're all set. Microsoft is launching PlasmaBot to encourage people who recovered from the thing to donate their plasma as a possible treatment. Notice that the World Health Organization has said that there's no evidence that if you've been infected that you are now immune, but hey, let's collect your plasma just in case.
Now, in normal times, you get some money for plasma, right? Isn't it pretty decent money?
Do.
Yeah, you get more money from plasma than blood.
The word donate here is ridiculous. We got to throw these people some dollars.
We already did. It's $1,200.
Stimulated.
We could give them another 12 for the plasma, I think.
Okay. Our next story, I don't know. Somebody's definitely feeling the lockdown insanity. This AI's only function is to draw penises.
I feel like they could have just gotten like a 12-year-old boy to do this for free and spent way less time.
But it doesn't draw the whole thing.
Yeah.
You start and it finishes.
Yeah. But it was trained with 10,000 doodles. Like, where did they get that input set? Did they make that input set themselves? Where did that come from?
They just went around the public bathrooms.
Road trip. There's a link to the GitHub page in the article if you want to check it out. So,
if you're really looking to stay busy during this quarantine.
Yeah, we've got an uplifting story for you. BCI system gives paralyzed man back his sense of touch with haptic feedback. And I was thinking this was going to be something like not super involved, but it actually turns out it's really invasive. So this guy was in a car wreck, and it really messed up his spine. They had to implant something in his brain, but the thing in his brain really just receives an amplified version of the signals that are coming from his arm. So it turns out that he actually is perceiving touch at like a subconscious level, but it's not enough. There's not enough of the signal level or whatever is not high enough from his nerves for his brain to actually say that is, a real touch event happening. So he's been modified, and so he's getting sort of a sense of touch back as a result of that modification.
This makes me feel like, because that it's not perfect, so they have to kind of like map the movement to the sensation. So somewhere that's being stored, a model is being created. And we're probably like 30 years away from this same technology, just completely simulating all human experience.
Yeah.
This is totally Matrix-like stuff, given along a timeline. Yeah. Because they just have to pop that thing into your brainstem, and they already know, hey, this is what it feels like to raise your arm. So they can just make that happen.
We literally will be the Futurama head in jars. Like that will be a technology, but it won't be 1,000 years. It'll be more like 100.
I think a great dystopian fiction is a future where this is a thing, and you never know if your experience is real. So you have to come up with this crazy like torture cult to bring you to new heights of pain that aren't previously mapped, so that you can determine if you're being simulated or not.
I thought I thought you were gonna go with like the Inception thing where he has like the top that he spins to tell if it's reality or not. But yours is
No,
much.
they could simulate that. That never made any sense to me in Inception. Why those things, certain objects didn't do that.
Yeah, because in theory you could just, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be an
Anyway.
easy thing to simulate.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, you have to like a surgery robot has to remove your skin and reattach it with no anesthesia, because the haptic feedback machine can't simulate that. And if you feel nothing during that process, you're in the simulation.
That would be a very, very dark novel. But
Yeah, and you go more insane every time you are in the real world and that happens because of the pain.
what about things like, you know, in order to save the human race, we have to do that because there's just not enough energy, that we can't produce enough food for everybody to live in the real world. You're just going to have to be a brain in the jar because that's the most energy efficient thing to do.
But why do we need those brains?
Well, because the brain is still the
Cryptocurrency?
most efficient computation device compared to like what we've been able to produce technologically.
So it's really just the end of that story is that it turns out it was always brains in a jar. There were no real people.
Yeah. It was always brains in a jar, but we had to completely rediscover technology over a period of like 3,500 years or 10,000 years or whatever. So all of recorded creation and all of our current history and mythos and all that has actually just been since the brain in a jar days.
I mean, that is just the Matrix at that point.
We need to start shooting this as soon as the lockdown's over.
No, we'll just deep fake it. We don't
Well,
need actors anymore.
Our last story is about Violet, the robot that can kill the virus. And it looks to me like it's just a fluorescent light on a Roomba, but you know, what do I know?
Well, I was going to cut this one. I forgot, but it's because remember the other ultraviolet robot has like 12 tubes.
Yeah.
This one's got one.
Yeah, but it's really bright. No, yeah, it seems terrible.
I guess it's more directed because the other one was a 360 rotation.
In the video, Time also had this other robot, which just seems really smug. Like, the robot's just looking around with all the old people, and it's like, I'm a piece of technology. I'm going to live forever. You guys have 1, maybe 2 years tops.
I really dislike its face. It seems to me that they could have gotten away with a much cuter face if they had just put one screen on there instead of breaking the mouth up away from the eyes.
Maybe cute was not what they were going for.
Notice that it has a face on its chest with those black marks too, and that face is much cuter.
That's to distract predators. You give them a false face.
Yeah,
It's like the back of a tiger's head.
like an anglerfish.
So, yeah. Basically, this robot just, you put it in a room, and it sweeps the room like a Roomba. It just goes all the way around the room, shining the light on everything. Yeah.
I saw people are now selling a water bottle that UVs the inside of itself after every use.
That's been a thing for a long time. You can get that for backpacking, yeah. The issue is you have to carry extra batteries with it, and like it goes through batteries really quickly. So
Yeah, imagine. So how long do you think this would have to go on, the crisis? Or maybe we get back to a world where, we used to live with it all the time. That we start building UV into houses, kind of like, central vacuums were a thing for a while.
yeah, and you just start
But you've got
sanitizing
like
your
a
house.
central UV light that you just drag out, put on a pair of sunglasses, and just UV down all of your rooms.
It's like the Amazon delivery drivers outside, and your whole porch is just covered in UV lights, and he's standing on the porch, and it's just like, hang on a second there, cover your eyes, and you hit the big button, and it's just on your porch,
I can totally
disinfecting
see
the guy.
like a UV delivery tray, like have one of those sliding delivery things, like in prison or in the medical wards where they have to separate people. So it's like a big tray, and you come out and they put your stuff in it, and you slide it back in, and it just UVs everything.
I've seen sillier things. I mean, that's probably $1 million product idea right there. The Level 1 product disinfectorator.
We patented it. Don't try to make it before we do. We'll see.
Yeah, it seems like that would work. Well, we're just barely staving off the cabin fever. We hope you are too. Maybe things will be back to normal soon. I don't know.
I think this is definitely going to be one of the worst weeks ever for Level 1 news.
It's always every week though they tune in. Who knows what new audio problem we'll have, or camera problem, or
engagement challenge. How bad was it?
I'm not gonna have this audio set up next week, no matter what. So
nah.
Don't worry about that.
It's like going back in time to when we first started and we didn't know what we were doing.
We had no idea. We still have no idea, but it's fine.
But it's improved, usually.
Well, we know how bad this is. We just don't care.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.